Hello and welcome to the Westcity Church podcast. If you'd like to get to know us more, find us at westcitychurch.com.au. We really hope that you're encouraged by today's message.
It was a bit of a late call up, as MJ's not feeling well, so Mel got desperate, and so here I am. Everything that we do, if you're new to West City, it in terms of when we gather in this space, we're always making our way, a pilgrimage to the table by the end of the service, to communion, to the Lord's Supper, to Eucharist. And last night, Emily and I watched a movie, I think it's been around for a bit, called Just Mercy, if you've come across that movie before. And it's set in sort of the begins around the sort of later 80s into the 1990s, and a period. It's based on a true story, and it really highlights. I think the shocking thing for me was just seeing and being reminded of the racism that was so prevalent in the Deep South and in the US in that period of time. Like in terms of, when we were graduating high school. The lines that were drawn between us and them. And it disturbs me greatly that it feels like the volume is being turned up on that rhetoric again in our world. It feels like our world is going a little bit crazy to another level of us against them, the right against left, the woke and the other mob. But do you see how easy that is? And here we are in this space, a space that feels like we're going crazy. And I'm really drawn to the words of an author, Margaret Wheatley, who talks about how important it is to create islands of sanity based on generosity, creativity and kindness. How necessary that is for us to kind of exit at points the world, to find either communities of practice or gatherings like this, to be reminded of creativity and goodness and kindness and beauty and generosity. The table for me is the great leveler, where no one is higher, no one's lower, no one's greater. We don't come to the table with a title. We come at the invitation of Jesus, and we receive grace. We receive kindness and mercy, reminded that as we receive, we then go. So however you come in today, I'm just going to sing a song that I wrote a few years back called At Your Table Again, and maybe you identify with one of these verses, one of these spaces. Maybe you fall in the cracks a little bit. Maybe you play the game like Twister, 1 foot in, 2 verses. Just don't fall over. All right, here we go. I'm weighed, I'm measured and compared, hollowed out by a world that declares that one's worth is determined by men. So Jesus, I'm here at your table again, where no one is greater and no one is higher, none more important, Lord, round your table, and all are found equal. All are embraced, sharing their stories of unfolding grace. And we take this bread and this cup, emblems of unyielding love that you've given us. And as we do, we make space to remember you until that day you come again. lost in the desert of mundane, where day after day feels the same. I'm struggling even to say an amen. But Jesus, I'm here at your table again. No one is greater and no one is higher, none more important, Lord, round your table. All are found equal, all are embraced, sharing their stories of ongoing grace. And we take this bread and this cup, emblems of unyielding love that you have given us. And as we do, we make space to remember you until that day you come again. Full of faith and with hope I have gone, loving others, I know I've loved you, Lord. Tales of joy bring me to this week's end. So Jesus, I'm here at your table again, where no one is greater and no one is higher, none more important, Lord, round your table. All are found equal, all are embraced, sharing their stories of ongoing grace. We take this bread and this cup, emblems of unyielding love that you have given us. And as we do, we make space to remember you until that day.
That felt like a gift of space and time and presence and beautiful people in this congregation holding up a sign saying, "Marry me, Dawn." I was like, "Be cool, Dawn, just, keep moving." I was too beautiful. That might be the funnest thing that's ever happened to me. Thank you. Oh, yes, precious space. Thanks so much to the team for giving us the opportunity to bow a knee, either physically or metaphorically, to take a breath and visualise what it means, I think, to have the author of salvation standing before us, telling us that we're loved. So, as you know, we have done some deep dives over the past few weeks to explore what Westcity has looked like and felt like and tasted like over the years. And we've done that with a sense of what is it that we're becoming? What does becoming even look like? And so to entertain the notion of becoming, we have to know where we've come from. We have to know where we are. And we can have a sense, I think, of where we're heading towards. And every time I kept thinking about that word becoming, and this week, where we get to think a bit about the becoming of the future, I kept seeing this picture of a compass. That's a bit old school, right? But I have used a compass recently, which I can explain in a little bit. But most of us probably would not have picked up a compass either ever or recently. And I feel like the notion of a compass is helpful for this series, because what this series is helping us both as individuals but as a collective is to give us coordinates to orientate ourselves for the next period of time. And how we choose to orientate ourselves as individuals and as a collective is important. it's important that we find and know what our compass points are. It's also helpful to consider that if we orientate or direct ourselves towards a single compass point or in a single direction, that's probably not helpful either. And so what I want to explore a little bit today is the tension between those things and perhaps where that's going to point us as individuals and us as West City. We've heard about how West City came to be, and we've heard about the Church of Christ movement. We've explored some of the current, some of the intent and the strategy behind where we are now. And thanks, Steve, I think, for taking us through some of the board thoughts on that as well. And we've looked at what the being, what that notion of being is. We've done it with the filter of becoming, which is effectively a filter of transformation. Transformation through Christ. And the whole idea of this is that we're not stuck in a static place that requires us to just be human doings, but that as we inhabit and truly live in the spaces of what it means to be human beings, that we can posture our lives and our spirits to be transformed as we become and as we are. In that space of being and becoming, it's not a single orientation, it's not a single posture. And so, to that point, I wanted to share just a story of some of my past experiences as an example of not being stuck in a single orientation. For much of my working life, I have worked in international aid and development, which has seen me travel to places that aren't on tourist maps, and it's seen me go to places that you need to have specific approval for or specific training in security and safety protocols to be allowed to go to. And there's been, I guess, lots of times where I've chosen to intentionally do some courses or chosen to develop skills in order to be as prepared as I can be. And the courses that I've done are genuinely designed to teach you as many skills as possible in as realistic an environment as possible, whilst mimicking as much stress as possible, with the hope that our brains will lay down some neural pathways using repetition in the learning of skills under pressure. You know, that idea of, I think St. John's training, first aid training does it a little bit, that you do repetition of things and then they put you under a bit of pressure and you do repetition some more so that hopefully you've got muscle memory, right? When the time, and if, thank goodness, the time might not ever come, but if you needed to, that you've got something in your back pocket to pull out. Where am I? So yeah, muscle memory. So for example, we learnt in the classroom, this is a little bit macabre, sorry, how to pack a chest wound or how to apply a tourniquet. And then we learned it again. And then we got thrown into a situation in the middle of the night where I had to put on a tourniquet. And even though it was a fake leg and it was fake blood, it did not feel fake. I hope that I never, ever, ever have to use that skill. But I know that somewhere in the back of my mind, some of that, if I ever did, God, I hope I never have to, it would actually, there would be a little bit of memory in that space for me. And it was about predicting and being able to risk mitigate. It was about preparation, preparedness, and control. It was about being prepared for the future whilst responding to the present. Those courses, that skill development, I can say has saved my life and has been absolutely foundational in how I've approached not only my work but my life. And I think is still part of my reflexive responses to things now, even though I don't do that work anymore. But even with the experience and training, every time I travelled to those environments that required an almost exclusive future focus, it meant that I traded off actually being present in so many spaces. Yes, I was clearly present, but it often wasn't in a way that allowed my body to recover and to be still. So I was present, but I was ahead. I was out there. And I usually came home unwell, and it would take weeks to feel like I was picking myself back up again, and that I was finding the rhythm of the being and the present. That was my reality, only every now and then, and I know that people here and all around the world live constantly in that flight or fright, that sense of hypervigilance, that having to be absolutely on the cusp of predicting the future in order to stay alive. And I'm not at all suggesting that that's not needed, because it clearly is. But what I am suggesting is that it comes with a cost, and that our bodies and our brains pay the toll for the degree of stress that living so focused on the future causes. And I think there's also a cost for living so focused on the past that we stop being present. And I'm not suggesting that we forget the past. We shouldn't and we can't. We bring it with us. We bring the people with us. They're in our hearts, in our skin, in our memories, and in our stories. The past forms the foundations, the building blocks of our present. So how is it then that we are able to hold all of these spaces and these realities in tension and in balance in order to contemplate the notion of being and becoming simultaneously as a possibility? And why is that even important? How do we orientate ourselves so that our compass needle doesn't just point us in one direction, but gives us the coordinates for both being and becoming? I want to share with you a Bible passage that for me I found really helpful in exploring this. It's 2 Corinthians 3:16 to 18, and I'm going to read it to you so that those words can wash over you. Whenever, though, they turn to face God, as Moses did, God removes the veil, and there they are face to face. They suddenly recognize that God is a living, personal presence. He is not a piece of chiseled stone. And when God is personally present, a living spirit, that old constricting legislation is recognized as obsolete. We're free of it, all of us. Nothing between us and God. Our faces shining with the brightness of his face. And so we are transfigured much like the Messiah, transformed much like the Messiah. Our lives gradually becoming brighter and more beautiful as God enters our lives and as we become like him. What we're being shown in these passages is a comparison between the old and the new covenants. And the idea that when Moses was with God in the writing of the old covenant, he saw God's glory face to face, and it changed his physical appearance so much that his face radiated and shone. And when the Israelites saw Moses after this time, that glory was still present, but it was fading. And so he wore a veil to conceal what was fading, as a representation that the old covenant was temporal, it was time limited, and was to be seen as a comparison to the new covenant that was yet to come, which did not require a veil, which was eternal and with glory unimaginable. The new covenant means so much more because of the freedom and the hope that it brings. The orientation to that which was known and had gone before, versus an orientation to that which is the Spirit, that was and is to come. I can almost picture the compass needle moving as it orientates us in those directions. And I think that is essentially the movement between the past, the present, and the future where we find ourselves as a community, seeking to walk into the transformation that comes with living in the Spirit. As a church, we've used the idea of pilgrimage as a mechanism for thinking about what this transformation is. Being a pilgrim is about finding an orientation that enables us to keep moving, that enables us to keep walking. It is about living in the unveiled new covenant of God's glory. That as we are transforming, we radiate the presence and the glory of God as we become more like them. It feels like the idea of new covenant orientation might be asking something of us. It might be asking us to recognise what in our lives is constrictive and obsolete. Let me read some of that passage again. Whenever they turn their face to God as Moses did, God removes the veil and there they are face to face. They suddenly, being face to face with God, recognise that God is a living, personal presence, not a piece of chiselled stone. And when God is personally present, a living spirit, that old constricting legislation is recognised as obsolete. To be able to orientate in the space of being and becoming, we need to release the things that are constricting and need to become obsolete. We can release the things that are keeping us in the doing and the done. That will look different for each of us. That will look different for us as a collective. I heard a quote recently that talked about being and becoming as a sacred space between the grief and pain of breaking and the grace and patience of rebuilding. I thought that was beautiful. The grief and pain of breaking and the grace and patience of rebuilding is the sacred space of being and becoming. And it struck me that to be able to feel grief and to be open to healing requires a letting go. It requires a posture, an orientation that allows for an unknown to become possible. Perhaps that is recognising and releasing fear. Perhaps that is recognising and releasing hurt, rejection, and pain, and then being prepared to engage in a journey of forgiveness. Maybe that forgiveness is for God, and maybe that forgiveness is for yourself. Perhaps it's letting go of being in control. Ouch. Perhaps it's surrendering to being loved, to being seen, to being known. The journey of transformation of our lives, gradually becoming brighter and more beautiful as God enters our lives and we become like Him, requires us charting our course with Jesus. As a church, every week, we remind ourselves about that in the Go of Christ that we say at the end. Let me say these words again, and we'll say them again at the end. We acknowledge today that we've come together to be reminded of the Go of Christ. So, we'll go and feed the hungry. We'll go and clothe the naked. We'll go and fight for justice. We'll go and end oppression. We'll go and proclaim anew the old story. We'll go and reach those who are running from God and God's church. We'll go and associate with those who don't look like us, talk like us, don't act like us, and even don't like us. And we'll do it all in the name of the one who sent us, whose name is Jesus. That's a very powerful reminder. And I think it's probably worth noting that there is inherent tension in those words because it's framed around the notion of action. And action can be easily translated to doing, I think. So there's so much more that we can take from those precious words, I think, if we don't just see it as an action list, as something to do. What would it look like if we were to imagine those words in a really different way? If we were to imagine what proclaiming the old story could look like if it was more than just a literal interpretation of those words? How can we lean into those words in a different way? Absolutely, yes, we need to know where we've come from. Absolutely, yes, we need to know where we are and who we are. And absolutely, yes, we can live with our faces unveiled in our living, walking, breathing life with God. We seek to be a community that does this together with authenticity and grace. And that can be really messy. It can be really beautiful. It's about reminding ourselves and each other about what our compass bearings are. And I just had a thought as I was driving here that one of my compass bearings that I have to be really diligent in is reminding myself, I try to do it every day, I don't remember, but about the armour of God. And I think we all would have different expressions of what our compass bearings are. But for me, being mindful of the armour of God is one of the most powerful, my brain powerful mechanisms to put me away from being stuck in the past or so focused on the future. And so I just want to say what I say and what I pray is, and I've made huge creative license in this. So I put on the undergarment of humility. I put on the sandals of the gospel of peace, put on the belt of truth, put on the breastplate of righteousness, put on the helmet of salvation, take up the shield of faith, and I use the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. I put on the mantle of praise and an outer garment of joy. They're words, right? And, we don't necessarily have to do that in order for them to be true. Those words are true. But what that does for me is it is a compass orientation about the inhabitation of God into those spaces for me, on behalf of me and with me. So as we seek to be a community that reminds ourselves and each others of the compass bearings, it's about being open to the invitation. The invitation is for us all to know that we are welcome here with God. You are welcome here. I am welcome here. And as we have been exploring the notion of becoming past, present and future for West City over these past few weeks, we hope that it is abundantly clear that the door is open for you and you are welcome at the table of Christ. So why don't we do that? Why don't we come to the table? We can absolutely orient ourselves in the direction of the words from Trav earlier about what the table can look like. We can orientate ourselves in the direction of what it means for us to open our hands. What do we need to let go of? What do we need to release? What do we need to seek? And you can know that Christ will meet you here. And so as the beautiful people get ready for communion, how it works is we have bread that you can take, and then you dip it in either Ribena or wine, and wine is in the glass with the white rim at the top. Or if you are gluten intolerant, there's some celiac safe options down here for you. But we ask that you do it in a way that is right for you. And so please know that this is the table, not of the church, but of the Lord. It is made ready for those who love God and for those who want to love God more. So come, you who have much faith and you who have little, you who have been here often and you who come for the first time, you who have tried to follow and you who have failed. Come, because it is the Lord who invites you. It is God's will that those who want Christ should meet him here. So come.
How good was that message? Thank you so much for joining us. Each week at West City, we say a benediction together. We do this because we believe that the purpose of the church is to be a caring community for the world, and that as we go and serve others, we enter into Christ's work of welcome, restoration and healing, both for us and others. We believe that in doing so, we get to see and encounter Christ. So let's say the benediction together. We come together as the church to be reminded of the go of Christ. So we will go out and feed the hungry, go out and clothe the naked, go out and fight for justice, go out and end oppression. Go out and proclaim anew the old story. Go out and associate with those who don't look like us, think like us, act like us, and don't even like us. And we'll do it all in the name of the one who sent us. His name is Jesus.